Hi friends, we are going to discuss about the main syllabus in this session. We all know that UPSC mains examination consists of 7 plus 2, that is 7 papers plus 2 qualifying papers. Okay, the 2 qualifying papers, so one is English and another is your language, means any language selected by you, which is an Indian language. If you are from Karnataka, you may be, means not necessarily from state, you may be choosing any one language like Kannada, Tamil, Hindi, right? So any one language you can choose. So and these two papers, first if I am taking Kannada, okay, so this paper is for 300 marks. 300, correct? No, out of this, so you must secure how much? Just 75, means to qualify in that compulsory papers it is 25% score. Out of 300 you need to secure 75 marks. Fine. So what about the remaining 7 papers? We know that the 7 papers, like one is essay, general studies 1, general studies 2, general studies 3, general studies 4. Okay, so each carries 250 marks. 250 into 5, that is 1250. 1250. And remaining 2 papers, here 5 papers over, remaining 2 papers are for your optional subject. Suppose you are taking Kannada or mathematics or zoology or any subject optional. So again it is consisting of paper 1 and paper 2. So paper 1 for 250 and paper 2 for 250. So totally 1250 plus 500. Totally 1750. That is 1750. 1750. Out of this 1750, that is 1750 from 7 papers. So usually, like the one who scores, means it depends upon the category also. We cannot say like exactly this one. And next level is interview, that is for 275 marks. Anyway, our focus is to understand these 7 papers, in detail. And what about this compulsory papers? Compulsory papers are of the level of 10th standard. Whatever you have studied in the 10th standard, the languages, means in English and your local language, so the same thing will be here. Okay, it is not that difficult, but you cannot ignore that. At least you need to make sure that write it once and ensure that at least you are comfortably getting 100 150 marks. Okay, so that you will get 75 easily. Okay, now we'll see one by one. So like general studies paper 1, what is the syllabus? General studies 2, what is the syllabus? General studies 3, what is the syllabus? And also for general studies 4. How about essay? Essay, there is no topic as such, so we'll be dealing that how to write essay in a separate session. The syllabus for that is, see, it is very simple. The topic will be given from the national level, that is a nationally important topics, internationally important topics, and some philosophical topics will be given in the essay. Okay, there is no barrier, like it may be from history, it may be from geography, it may be from economy, it may be from international relation. Okay, so no need of separate discussion of the syllabus of essay. That is, it may be from any of these 4 topics. Okay, so now we will enter one by one. The general studies paper 1. But at least what is there in general studies paper 1? First we will understand that and we will enter into that subject. In the general studies paper 1, okay, in the general studies paper 1, if you broadly want to see, again you can segregate it as 3 subjects. One is basically, you can see like culture and history. Another is you can say like society, and third you can say like geography in the paper 1. If you want to see what is there in paper 2, so here again I tell you that in general studies paper 1 you'll be having history subject, society and geography. Okay, and similarly in the general studies paper 2 you can see constitution of India, governance, okay, and international relations. Constitution of India, governance, or you can also say social justice topic, and international relations. In the paper 3, basically we are going to see agriculture topic, science and technology, and economy. Agriculture, science and technology, economy. Anyway, in detail we'll see there. And paper 4 is about ethics. Okay, ethics consists of like the topics like aptitude, emotional intelligence, and basics of ethics, and also case studies involved, right? Okay, now we'll understand one by one. We'll start with the general studies paper 1, so which is for 250 marks, correct? So here, Indian heritage and culture, Indian heritage and culture, history of India and also of the world, geography of the world, and society. Society. So I said, like you remember, history, geography, and society are the 3 topics here. First thing, Indian culture. Indian culture. In the preliminary examination, we have studied Indian culture, correct? Here also the same thing, like it covers the salient features of literature, art forms, and architecture forms of ancient to modern time. What it covers actually? So, features of literature. If you segregate the literature like ancient literature, medieval, and modern literature, right? Here, literature is a very important source of study because it gives more authentic information compared to other forms because it is written. Okay, you can understand what is the practice at that time, how the administration was at that time. It may be a literature, maybe like it may be telling a story, but still we can study, understand the life at that time. So that's why the literature becomes very, very important. For example, UPSC asked a question that is about the Sangama literature. Definitely it gives the life in the South India at that time, even also in Northern India, right? So how the life was there, correct? If you study Vedic civilization, Vedas, you will understand what type of beliefs were there, what type of rituals were there, how the medicine was developed, means what kind of treatment they used to give. It's not just about medicine, also about mantra, maya, correct? So the literature gives us insights into the life of those people, what type of occupation they used to do. Everything we can understand with the help of the literature. That is why we need to study literature. It is a very, very important source. Okay, art forms. Art forms. So basically, we can segregate the art forms like visual arts and also performing arts. Correct? Visual, like you can see the drawing, that is painting. It may be on the wall, or it may be on the paper, or it may be on anything small creature. Correct? We call it as a miniature painting. Anyway, so here the visual and performance. Performance means like dance, like music, like theater. So why we need to study the art forms? That also gives us like what kind of life we have lived, what was the progress at that time. Correct. So when you are seeing like metallurgy, like you are seeing a idol, that also gives you how much they were means how what was their skills, engineering skills. Correct. So these art forms, one is our, it is our heritage, cultural heritage. Okay, but it also gives the insights into the life of those people, to what extent the science and technology was developed, engineering was developed. Correct. So metallurgy should be developed, right, in order to make that idol. So this not only helps us to give the visual delight, but also helps us to understand the development at that time, the prosperity at that time. So it is not just one dimensional. So we need to study from the aesthetic importance as well as from the other angles. Correct. And architecture forms, like from the Harappan civilization until the modern times, we can see how the Harappan cities were built. That is Mohenjo-daro, correct? Mohenjo-daro city. How the city structure was there, how a bathing ghat was there, how a under drainage system was there, how the bricks were of the uniform size. That tells us something about geometry, tells us something about measurement. Underground drainage system tells about the sanitation, that is the importance of the health, how they were used to take care. Correct. So today we are having similarities. UPSC asked a question on that. Okay, what is the learning from the Harappan civilization to the modern cities, the well-built cities? What is the advantage of well-built cities? How the roads are meeting exactly at the right angle. So how it is helpful for traveling, for giving service, for administration. Correct. How the rulers were at the higher platform. So how it is useful. Correct. Today's modern public bathing ghats or swimming pools can be seen in the or maybe inspired from the Harappan civilization. Today also we don't have that complete underground drainage system in present cities also. So is it not a learning from that Harappan civilization? Anyway, the architecture point of view, it is very very important. If you compare the ancient and the medieval, you can see the difference. How the Islamic architecture dominated in the medieval India. Okay, how the ancient structures like the temples, what was the visualization, how it was built, correct? How it was facing, all are on the basis of like what we call as like a Vastu Purusha concept. Why it should be like that? Okay, how a temple was a center of like education, entertainment, or acting like a hospital, administrative unit. So how many purpose it was serving? Correct. One side, the aesthetic beauty of the temple, how a temple is built, how a Gopram is there. Correct. If you compare North India and how South India, how it is different. The different type of architecture styles like Nagara, Dravida, Vesara can be seen. And what is the importance? One is about beauty, the aesthetic importance, and other side, how they are acting like the centers for different purposes. So that is the beauty of those subject. Both the purpose it was serving, correct? Multiple purposes. The architectural advantages, how a structure will be strong when the dome structure is used, correct? So how the gravity can be, means the gravitational force in the case of the lintel and beam, means if it is like horizontal, the gravity will act on the center, correct? It will act on the center and it will break down. But in the case of dome, so gravity is equally distributed, correct? So that is important from that is even today also it is important. So how to improve the life of the building? So that can be learned from the architecture, correct? And we can also understand we can also understand how actually the architecture styles help in the construction of the modern buildings modern buildings, correct? So that we can learn from these different styles. We can see after the advent of the Europeans, the construction of the buildings is completely different. We can see like the big windows, right? The porticos, all these are influenced from the advent of Europeans. So today also we are using them in our buildings. How the energy can be saved, that is the primary importance, right? How the energy can be saved. So these all architecture styles helps us to develop the new building codes. How without using the uh, resources, how we can use the natural, means basically the man-made resources without polluting, how can use the light. Just I'm giving one type of dimension, I'm not telling like only this is the thing, but from the administrative angle I'm trying to explain why we need to study the Indian culture. Another side, yes, it is also source of income for us. If tourism is developed, like how Buddhist circuit, Jain circuit, Hindu circuit, correct? All these circuits are developed. How it is helping actually, how it is helping the government of India to earn revenues because of the development of the tourism. Outsiders are visiting India, so that is also source of income. So in multiple ways this art and culture is helping us, it is the duty of Indian citizens to preserve this rich Indian heritage for the future generation. Okay, so they also should understand how the Indian civilization, how India has evolved over the time, right? Okay. And modern Indian history, okay, it includes significant personalities. I hope you have already studied the modern Indian history in the, means you are going to study in the preliminary part. So they are talking about significant events and personalities, issues during the middle of the 18th century until the present. Significant events, like we discussed, say, national movements. They are the bigger events, significant events. It may be like 1857 revolt, it may be Swadeshi movement of 1905, or it may be non-cooperation movement of 1920s and civil disobedience movement of 1930s and quit India movement of 1940s, correct? So here we are not only going to study just these main events, like Jallianwala Bagh massacre, how the innocent people were killed in that massacre, correct? What was the action taken? Why actually the General Dyer ordered the killing of those innocent people gathered in a Jallianwala Bagh, correct, in Amritsar? How the Indians responded to that, how it invoked the nationalism among the spirit of nationalism among the people of India, correct? How it influenced, what is the value of the contribution of those innocent people like Jallianwala Bagh, or a incident in the non-cooperation movement, the Chauri Chaura incident, how it is significant from the point of ideals of Satyagraha, that is Gandhian values, how much he gave importance to the non-violence. He stopped the non-cooperation movement because people involved in violence in Chauri Chaura incidents, correct? How much value he has given to the non-violence. So that is the learning for us. Correct? Anyway, we are going to discuss about the significant events in the history. When the Bengal was partitioned, how Hindu and Muslim showed their unity. by tying the Raksha Bandhan, by tying Rakhi, how they showed their unity and solidarity. These are all the important, significant events of that time. And what is the learning for us? So, today we need to understand them. Freedom is not free. So, it has come with a lot of cost. Lot of people, okay, lakhs of people have lost their life. We need to understand that only we can ensure that the freedom is rightly utilized. The function personalities. We study a lot about Gandhi, correct? What is his contribution? What is Satyagraha? What is non-violence? Everything we'll understand about him. We'll study about Rabindranath Tagore. We'll study about Abul Kalam Azad, correct? We'll study about Jinnah. We'll study about Lokmanya Tilak. So different personalities. Aurobindo Ghosh. So many personalities will come there. So what is their contribution? What is their contribution with respect to freedom struggle, with respect to like administrative reforms? What is the contribution of Ambedkar? So many personalities are there. We need to understand. It is unlimited. Means if you start studying about contribution of key personalities, it is never going to end. But we need to understand what is the contribution, how the modern India is built on the sacrifice of all these people. Correct? So personalities. Definitely UPSC will ask on Gandhi, on Aurobindo Ghosh, on Rabindranath Tagore. Correct? Because the younger generation, the new generation need to imbibe those values in their administration and in their life. So that is why. And issues during the middle of the 18th century and until the present. Okay, the issues may be in the history. It is like, if you take the example, issue like Swaraj concept. So self-rule. What is the meaning of self-rule? It's like India completely independent or under the British. So a fight between the self-rule. National education. Okay, some say that it should be in English, some say that it should be in local languages, some wanted to adopt Western subject to be studied in India. So this goes on, the issues until we get independence. Okay, it may be about the subjects given to Indians, the financial independency to give should be given to the administration purpose. So many things we are going to understand. How the kings and queens at that time involved in the national movement, freedom struggle. Correct? So all these things can be studied in the modern Indian history. Okay? Modern Indian history. So again the books remains the same. Whatever we have discussed in the preliminary exam, books remains the same. But some additions can be made. Okay, we need to understand the struggle for independence book by Bipin Chandra. Okay, so there are many books. Okay, but we'll stick on to the basic books list what we have understood. Okay, like freedom struggle by Bipin Chandra and the NCERT books. Fine. And here it may not be mentioned like ancient and medieval separately, but you need to understand in the Indian culture that is automatically incorporated. That is part of that. Okay. So here in this history itself, okay, the various stages and important contributors and contribution from different parts of the country in the freedom struggle. So events over, personalities over, but how South India contributed in the freedom struggle, how Northeast contributed, how Western part of India contributed in the freedom struggle, how Central India contributed in the freedom struggle, and various stages. So, like we'll be understanding if you take the freedom struggle from the beginning, at least if you take from 1857, how the moderate phase was there, how later extremist phase was there, how Gandhian phase evolved, and after Gandhi, means after 1939 or after Quit India movement, how it evolved. That is the contribution from the different parts of the country. correct, and important contributions in the freedom struggle. In the different phase, different set of people were there. Okay, all these things we are going to study. Now we got the independence, post independence consolidation. Okay, post independence consolidation and reorganization within the country. Once we get independence, okay, so there was a big challenge because it's a vast country with a vast diversity. We need to consolidate it. How Patel played an important role in unifying whole India. Correct? So many princely states, more than 500 princely states. The dream of visualizing single India, correct? Union of India is not that easy. It was not a cakewalk for them. How much struggle they have undergone to unite all the people. So, even after so many princely states agreed to join, but the king of Kashmir and Junagadh and Nizam of Hyderabad did not agree. How they were successful in taking Jammu and Kashmir as a part of India. How Operation Polo was carried out and with respect to Nizam of Hyderabad and how it became part of India. And how Junagadh people voted for India and joined India. So that was a wonderful story. And after that, they keep on, like, states are formed, reorganization is keep on happening, new states are formed, merging, union territories are becoming new states. Like this, reorganization is keep on going on. The important events, okay, the wars are taking place between India and Pakistan, the formation of Bangladesh, correct, and the development progress is going under different administration. How Jawaharlal Nehru contributed, how Indira Gandhi contributed, how Rajiv Gandhi contributed, how Atal Bihari Vajpayee contributed, how Manmohan Singh contributed, how Narendra Modi is contributing. So all these things, important events in the post-independence. Okay, here mainly focusing upon the reorganization within the country. Okay, but we also need to focus upon other aspects. We cannot ignore it, like only even from the reorganization point we'll study. Okay, and next, when coming to history of the world. We need to understand. For this, we can refer the old NCERT books or the book by Arjun Dev, World History by Arjun Dev, that you can study for this thing. The history of the world, here the syllabus mentions, like, includes events, forms and effects on the society. Please understand. From 18th century, like world wars, industrial revolution, colonization, redrawal of the national boundaries, decolonization, political philosophies like communism, capitalism, socialism, etc. Wonderful subject. See, world history, we are not going to study from the beginning, okay, but at least they are mentioning from 18th century because it shaped the modern world and also influenced India, correct? That's why they have kept the syllabus, what impact it had on the society. That is also important. It is not just like world war happened. So here the syllabus mentioning about world wars, World War 1 and 2. Two world wars happened till now, and we need to study. It is not just a war between two countries. A groupings were there, allied forces, correct, axis powers. Means one group is attacking another country and that is taking support from the other countries. So finally it is a fight between two groups. How the World War 1 has taken place, how the World War 2 has taken place, how it impacted whole world, correct? It impacted the whole world in a bigger manner. Okay, even after World War, that effect can be seen in the Cold War period. Okay, Cold War between two poles like USSR and USA, that continued Okay, after 1991 with the disintegration of the USSR. Okay, so that came to an end, Cold War. But nowadays also it is in one form or other form, the bigger powers of the world are fighting against each other. Okay, the history of the world is talking about world wars, two world wars. Okay, and after the World War, Second World War, how the United Nations, earlier which was known as the League of Nations, how the United Nations was formed. Correct. And Industrial Revolution, very important. Okay, the present modern world is mainly is the effect of this Industrial Revolution, which was started in 1750s in England. Okay, the Industrial Revolution, that is mainly with the advent of new machines or the support given by government, the labor availability from the slave countries, means colonial countries, all these affected, means helped England to start with the Industrial Revolution. Why it happened there only? Why not in other countries? Why other countries are also having that invention, right? But why only in England? So that we'll study there. Interesting. How the Industrial Revolution spread across world, how it reached Japan, how it was in America, how it is in India. When whole world is witnessing Industrial Revolution, we were going in opposite direction. Why it is so? That we will understand in the Industrial Revolution. How it created impact on the society. How the family were became shattered into pieces. I can say like how it was giant family systems converted into nuclear family. How it created impact on the life of the people, health of the people, and psychological things, economical factors, lot of things we are going to study about Industrial Revolution. Okay, colonization. The European countries wanted to set up themselves when they came for trade, but later they understood we can take the administration in their hand. Colonies. They made the South Asian and Southeast Asian countries as their colonies. They are ruling us. So, what is this colonization concept? Correct? How they are doing administration? They are coming over here and taking the control of the administration of India. Not only India, many other countries, even African countries. Correct? So, this colonization, how it created impact? What was the impact of British rule in India? That we actually studied in the freedom struggle. Correct? But in the whole world, how it was there, how people suffered, how people were treated like as slaves, how they carried out, means how they carried out in a bigger term the slave trade, how the people were sold in the market. So we'll understand how it is like a black mark, how it created. And we cannot say everything was negative. The positives are also there. So development aspect was possible with the colonization, that we'll understand. And redrawal of national boundaries, right? How the Italy unification take place, correct? How the Italy unified, how the Germany was divided and later again united. Redrawal of boundaries, the scramble of Africa, how Africa was divided among the European countries, and later how it was united, means how it was made free. Correct? Redrawal of the national boundaries. Even in case of India, how India and Pakistan was formed with the different boundaries. How Bangladesh was separated. Retravel, national boundaries were redrawn after the World War II. Correct? How the colonization was ended and the concept of nationalism, nation, came into prominence. Correct? Decolonization, that's what? Decolonization means the power factors in the whole world is changing. It is no more Britain. The remaining powers are in force, like America and Russia. Correct? So, decolonization. The countries liberating themselves, like India. Okay? and political philosophies like communism, capitalism, socialism, which are ruling present world. We need to understand how it evolved. How only the economy is taking control of the whole world. That is capitalism. How market forces are influencing. How socialism is influencing. That is the welfare of the people is in the hands of the state. Example is India. How the different ideologies, communism, communalism, Marxism, socialism, capitalism. So all these isms will understand in the world history. Okay, beautiful subject. Okay, the revolutions, the French Revolution, American Revolution, Russian Revolution. So how those revolutions has taken place, how they have given the liberty concept, equality concept, correct? So this is about the first part of the paper one, correct? We'll understand the syllabus of the GS1 we have discussed now till now. The first, that is the art and culture part and the history part and the national movement, even the world history, correct? We'll understand the second subject in the paper one, that is general studies paper one, consists of society. Fine. Why we need to understand the society? We know that human being is a social person. Without the society he cannot live, and for an administrator he is also from the same society. And I can say this is the easiest subject of all. The reason is because we are living in the society, we are seeing that society and we are part of that society, correct? Even if you are able to analyze the things properly, even without preparation means just having the practical understanding, we can answer these questions. Okay, fine. So first we'll understand what is there in this syllabus in the society. Okay, salient aspects of diversity of India and Indian society. We all know that Indian diversity, either with respect to food culture or dressing sense or languages or the type of head in the family. It may be like father is the head of the family or mother is the head of the family. In whatever sense you see, we can see the diversity in India, correct? So we need to understand that aspects of diversity and Indian society. Okay, we have what is so special about Indian society, how it is different from the Western societies, correct? How we treat here, like our elders, how we treat the institutions, how we treat the education system, how we treat a market system here. Everything is unique. Market is not same everywhere. Okay, so this is the diversity of India and Indian society. See, when we say market in India, market is not just a market; it is a social component. The marriage alliances happens in the market. The friendship is developed in the market. It is not just like I give money and I'll take the items. Here, the market is all about social relationships along with the purchase and selling of the goods or services. Fine. So the diversity of India ensures like that hundreds of thousands of things to study with respect to Indian society. Okay, so why administrator need to study means if he understands what is happening in the society, how the people think about the different aspects, how to convince them, correct? So application point of view, you need to understand, okay, how we have to develop something, how to ensure the growth of that particular area. Definitely without understanding of that societal culture, it is impossible. For example, if you are district magistrate of a particular area and that area is mainly like vegetarian based area, so if you want to introduce in the midday meal scheme the egg component, so do you think that it will be successful? So it's unnecessary waste of the resources of the government. So you need to understand the pulse of the people. Fine. Anyway, these all things we'll also study in ethics. How to use the knowledge of society for the development of the nation. Okay, come. And here syllabus mentions like role of women and women's organization. Very, very important, because 50% of our population is constituted by women, and we all know that their participation in the growth is less, not because they are incapable, but because our society is not providing them opportunities. Correct? So they need to carry out the household work and also the outside work. If they are having one or two children, then it's gone. It is very, means it is very, very difficult or impossible for them to work in the outside the house, work outside the house. Correct? So with respect to that, the role of women and women organization plays a dominant role. Okay, so many like women organizations, they are helping the women, especially rural women or urban women, to work inside their home. Okay, they can do like candle making. I'm not just telling like only self-employment. These organizations are not just providing employment opportunities or supporting them. I'm also talking about the women organizations where they are fighting for the women rights, because we know that how the atrocities happen against the women, the rapes, the sexual harassment, correct, and dowry harassment. So, with respect to this, we need to understand the society and also the organizations, population and associated issues. Yes, definitely. Population, the huge population, we are the second most populated country in the world. We know that, correct? Whether is it a boon or bane? If you take it as a boon, it's a boon. If you take it as a bane, it's a bane. If all the youth are effectively used, the employment opportunities are created, then definitely they are going to contribute to the nation development. The bigger growth of the nation is possible, correct? So we need to understand how unemployment problem is creating the ill elements, correct? The bad elements in the society, how the crimes are happening. So there are multiple dimensions for this population associated issues. The mainly is poverty. Poverty. The poverty is a relative concept. Means I may say that I am poor compared to other person, but from the government perspective, at least we should be able to provide the basic necessities like food, clothing, shelter, and education, entertainment. All these things are basic. Okay, so how government has planned the poverty alleviation program till now, and how it is successful? Why actually it is difficult to alleviate the poverty? So it is basically, it is in the state of mind. Poverty is a state of mind. Okay, if he feels like I can work, he will find out multiple opportunities, and also government plays a dominant role here. Okay, and developmental issues, we know that one side environmental problem, another side developmental issues, correct? If you are planning for development of the nation, at the same time we need to take care of the environment. The environment is definitely needed for the good health of the society. Okay, and the increasing urbanization, we know that around 33% of the Indian population lives in the urban areas. Definitely it is creating lot more problems, lot more challenges. In the small area, many people need to live. Slum problems, health problems, correct, resource problems, transportation problems like traffic problem. Okay, and pollution problem. Multiple ways are there, urbanization, and their problems and remedies. What is the solution for that? Correct. So when the congestion is going for a particular area, we know that smart city concept, like outside areas will be developed, so that the problem and the burden on the urban areas is reduced. Okay, and social empowerment. Okay, communalism, regionalism, secularism. Okay, here empowering means enabling a person or a group or a community or a society as a whole. Okay, so here the social empowerment, it includes all the sections of the society. It may be women, it may be children, it may be transgender, it may be disabled people, Okay, so the social empowerment, very important concept. Social empowerment. See, if you are growing just economically, it may not reach the society as a whole. But we need to ensure that whole society is uplifted. Okay, so we need to understand that. Communalism. Okay, communalism. We know that in India, the moment we say that communalism, always the religion comes into picture. Okay, that is true. That is true in the perspective of India. But we'll understand what is communalism and how actually two communities develop that hatredness. What is the basic reason for that? The root cause goes to British era. How they use the tactic of divide and rule among the Hindus and Muslims. Correct? So it may be broader term, but Indian context it comes to religion only. Regionalism. We know that a particular region is trying to dominate over other issues. Okay, so that I belong to this area. So that fight happens between the two regions about the resources, maybe like water sharing resources. We are having affection towards our region. Okay, affection towards our region. That I belong to that is good, but it should not harm others. When mainly with respect to distribution of resources, that regionalism is creating a threat. Okay, sometimes it leads to division of that areas. A state may be divided into two parts, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Anyway, that we'll discuss. Regionalism, the affection towards a particular region is more. Secularism, that is, India is a land of diverse religions. In a western concept, the state and religion are completely isolated. But in the context of India, actually, the government is treating all the religions equally. All the religions equally. Okay, so there is no discrimination. It is not favoring one religion, or it should not favor one religion over the another religion. Okay, so and whether is it followed? What is the issues of secularism? Is there any threat to secularism? So all these things need to be discussed. And the globalization. Okay, globalization on the Indian society. We know that whole India is integrated into the rest of the world. Correct. So it is connected to rest of the world. Globalized. We say that global village concept. Anyone can connect to any part of the world easily now. He can also move to any part of the world easily now. So because of the effect of globalization, forget about the economy aspect that we'll study in the economy part, but here the culture is also getting mixed, influenced. Okay, definitely this effect of globalization is having effect on the Indian society. What effect it has on the Indian families, the family system, the like how the culture of nuclear family is growing, how the culture of taking care of the old age people is changing, how taking care of the children is changing, how they are influenced, what new things they are learning, what is the effect on them. So on like it is having effect on the women. It's both good and bad are there, having effect on the children, old age people, disabled people, correct, or transgender. So both good and bad we can see that globalization on the Indian society. So you can see this is the society part of the general studies paper 1. Okay, and we can see the questions will be mostly like that only. For example, the feminization of agriculture is increasing. Discuss about it. Correct. See, earlier also women were part of the agriculture. So why it is increasing? Maybe because of migration of the men. It may be push factor or pull factor, like attracted towards cities, or there is no option in the rural areas, they are moving. So for the education purpose, children are moving. So maybe like burden is put on the women, feminization of agriculture. Just a sample how the questions will be asked. Okay. So again the question was asked like the cycle of family, that nuclear family to joint family is keep on rotating. Interesting question. Correct. So nowadays, because of the work purpose, the husband and wife will be living in a city and the parents will be in the rural areas. But after that, what happens? uh, means after the children, okay, again the both the parents want to work outside. So who will look after the children? Again the grandmother and grandfather will come to cities. So this is how the joint family is converting as nuclear family, nuclear family is converting as the again joint family. So this is the interesting cycle of the families in India. So, so many interesting factors we'll observe in the society. So that is part of this society chapter, society syllabus. In the general studies paper one, this is the second important subject. And the third important subject in the general studies paper one is geography. Okay, so geography. So this and globalization, and here so geography. In this geography we have understood already the basic geography like river system, soil system, crop system, correct, mountain system, all those things, right? Here also the same syllabus is there, but they want in detail what is your perception, how you understood it, correct, what is your analysis about it. So let us see the syllabus of geography. See, here it is mentioned like distribution of the key natural resources across the world, including South Asia and Indian subcontinent. They are talking about natural resources. For example, if you take where the coal is available, correct? Where the coal is available, we know that in India where it is available. So similarly, across the world, they are expecting natural resources across the world. See, what is the purpose of this? If we know that where the resources are available and we may be able to understand, so which country is important for what purpose. Okay, for example, if you want to import uranium, from where you want to import uranium, like Kazakhstan, correct? So like that you will understand. So if you understand, broader understanding is there for you, like how the coal is available, where the oil is available. Is it from the Arab countries? From where we need to import from the natural gas? Or is it because, see, natural gas, if you want to import, it should be in neighboring country, correct? Because it is not like other material, correct? If you can import coal, but natural gas, so it should be nearest country. So if you are having the broader understanding, because transportation of gas is not that easy, correct, the pipeline is possible only among the neighboring countries, but coal can be shipped, iron ore can be shipped, but while shipping iron ore also it should not be far away country, because it will lose the weight, rust will happen and loss will happen. Interesting factors, right? So the availability of the natural resources, important natural resources, especially it may be gold, correct, because India imports a lot of gold, right? The distribution of key natural resources across the world, including South Asia and Indian subcontinent. Fine. So in India, what minerals are available where? Where coal is available, where bauxite is available, where copper is available, where iron is available, where petroleum is available. Everything we should be knowing. Okay. So after that, they are telling that factor responsible for the location of primary, secondary, and tertiary sector industries in various parts of the world, including India. So they are telling about. So we know that primary and secondary and tertiary sectors where the natural resources are directly used or grown. For example, agriculture is the primary sector. If you are using the tomatoes to make a soup, then you are using the primary resource as a input to the secondary, correct? So their ketchup is made, that is a secondary sector, and tertiary is basically about services. We know that it may be IT services, or it may be transportation, or it may be communication. Fine. The question is interesting topic. The question is why it is located here only. If somebody asks why Bangalore is called as a silicon city, so why not to the industries or the IT companies are going to some other places, correct? Why not to Bhopal? Why not to Jharkhand? So some factors should be there, right? Some facility should be there, right? So any market, any industry, if it wants to be set up, for example, like we call it as a factors of production. So land should be available, correct? Labor should be available, correct? Capital should be available, and entrepreneurship, that is skills should be available. Market is important. If you want to have, if you have produced a good, you want to sell it, right? And sometimes power is, some not sometimes, power is very essential component. And transportation, very very important. So based upon these things, actually, industry will be located. On top of all these things, government policies, correct? If an industry is setting up here, if IT policy is there in Karnataka, then it must be supporting the IT industries here. Why it is located here? Maybe good IT policy or the availability of engineers, low cost engineers. So like these factors. For example, where the steel industry will be located? At least there must be iron or coal. Correct? If both are there, definitely iron industry will be there. If only iron is there, okay, we will import coal from other side. If coal is there, we will import iron from other side, and still we'll have in steel industry. But interestingly, no iron, no coal, but still the industry is there. Steel industry is there. Interesting, right? For example, in A, iron is there. In C, coal is there. Okay, so C is importing iron, means taking iron from A, and A is taking coal from B. Okay, how about starting a steel industry here? Yes, it's wise because spending is half. Because here in the transportation more cost is involved, but this place is better compared to both. It is only, okay, you unload iron over here, you unload one truck, means coal here. So compared to A and C, the B is more cost effective. It is not having iron, not having coal. So like that, interesting factors are there to learn here. Okay, why we are developing so means industries here? Because the benefits available, correct? Somewhere the power is available, somewhere the nearest market is available. Nearest market is available, correct? That is one of the important factor. See, land should be available, money should be available to start a business. So economy, we study ease of doing business, correct? So definitely these factors are responsible to set up a industry over there. So that is the part of this syllabus. We have to understand not about just steel industry. We need to understand about IT industry. We need to understand about wire industry or metal means petroleum industry. Everything depends upon different factors. That is part of this syllabus, geography syllabus. Okay, and second thing, the important geophysical phenomena like earthquake, tsunami, volcanic activity, cyclone, etc. Okay, so here, and the geographical features and their location, changes in the critical geographical features like including water bodies and ice caps and the flora and fauna of such. Okay, here important geophysical phenomena. How earthquakes happen? Okay, so we need to understand that mainly here how it can cause problem when carrying out a suppose you are developing a city over there, you need to understand that. Okay, so what is the possibility of earthquake there, how the building code should be, correct? If you see Japan, the earthquake keeps on happening, right? Earthquake keeps on happening. Basically we'll understand here earthquake, how this, I am not going to discuss about the subject now, but what is part of the subject, so what is part of the syllabus, so how the building code should be there. So planning can be based upon this understanding of the earthquake. Same way tsunami, on the coastal sides where the possibility of tsunami is more, whether is it in Arabian Sea or is it in Bay of Bengal. Why it is more in Bay of Bengal rather than in Arabian Sea? So if you know that, the further plan can be easy. So prevention can be done, correct? Similarly, volcanic activities, so cyclones, okay? All these things need to be understood and their effect, how the mitigation plan can be planned. For example, if you see 2004 Chennai tsunami, how many lives were lost? But later, so many tsunamis happened, especially Odisha tsunami. Fill in, only one casualty was reported. How it is possible? So, the better the understanding of the geography helps us to save the lives, make it possible to administer that area in a better manner. So, that is why we need to understand. Correct? And the geographical features and their location and changes in the critical geographical features. For example, what is happening to water bodies? Depleting. The fresh water is means we are losing fresh water. Pollution. Correct. Because of the global warming, the ice caps are melting. Because of that, low-lying islands are submerging. So we need to understand all these geographical features. Where avalanches are increasing, correct, in the Himalayan area, how the disasters are happening, flash floods are happening, correct. What is the reason for that? We need to understand not only from that aspect how it affects the flora and fauna. The animal life is disturbed, the plant life is disturbed. We might have heard about the Western Ghats, how the loss of the habitat is creating problem for the animals. If the habitat is lost for them, their house is not there, means they will enter into the urban areas. You may be seeing the from the Bannerghatta side, the cheetah is entering the residential colonies. Anyway, so how it is affecting actually the geographical feature, the changes, how it is creating problem, effects, all those things we are going to study here. And the salient features of the world's physical geography. World's physical geography. This is mainly about like if you take the example of like cold currents or warm currents, correct? So how it is actually the currents are generated, how it is having impact on the climate, okay, or water bodies. If you take how the different river system across the world, what is their impact, how it is providing economic opportunity. So basically it is talking about the salient features. If you talk about India itself, okay, so we need to understand so many things. What is the difference between Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats? Correct, it is not the same, correct. Well, if you understand the drainage system, it is different. If you understand the mountain system, okay, that is different. So salient features of the world physical geography. World physical geography. We need to talk about soil system. We need to talk about drainage system, that is water system. We need to talk about crop system. But that is not a part of the physical geography. But actually, we need to study those things also, because that also will be part of your syllabus, even though it is not explicitly mentioned. Got it? So this is what is covered in geography. Here in the preliminary examination, you might be focusing more upon the physical geography. Here they are talking about the application based. Okay, and please remember, this is also part of your disaster management. In the third paper, we have the same thing, because in the disaster management also we need to study about earthquake, tsunami, volcano, cyclone, all these things. Okay, so please understand the first paper consists of like 3 subjects, mainly history point of view, geography point of view, and the societal point of view. Okay, so now we'll understand, okay, the paper 2, that is gender studies paper 2. Fine, that take a break and we'll continue that. Okay, thank you.